and education, we're talking about the dividends of youthfulness in Africa. On one side, we have unemployment, we have poverty, we have lack of quality education, to actually be frank. And on the other side, we have the potential, huge potential with regards to the youth, with the dividends that we can get from our youthfulness. And as you can see, according to the chart here, if we get it right, if we regress, we experience 0.1 decrease, in terms of GDP. If we stay put, 39% of increase that we experience, and if we actually progress, 88% increase from 2017 in terms of in terms of the power of education, and in terms of African economic growth, when we use youth, when we empower youth and consider youth as a human capital investment. And again, speaking about education and speaking about youth, the more youth that are educated, the more earnings can be achieved, and the more it can translate into GDP, economic growth. And this is what we should be talking about. I see some people will say, but education, there's no return on investment. Why should when I can go into business and all that and all that? It's true, but we must know that quality education with the power of technology, you can actually, you're adding value to yourself. In sub-Saharan Africa, it's 1 year, another year that you spend going to school will result in 13%, earnings in terms of the economic part of it that you can go. But now we're talking about this, but we shouldn't be lovey-dovey about technology. We know there's so many technologies, and I know some of my colleagues that will present after me will do justice to all these technologies. But we must know that Africa is actually far behind. The question we must ask ourselves is, how can we, face the challenges of modern education with technology? We know that technology it's been proven from since the COVID era. And in fact, I remember when I traveled, my first trip to South Africa in 2007, I had a suitcase full of books. I was ready to study. I had to even pay extra to pay a fee for extra luggage. And if I had to redo it, I think all the books and extra luggage extra kilos that I added to my luggage, I would have actually been where's my cell phone? Would have been everything could have been, being saved on my cell phone or a computer. And that's the power of education. That's the power of technology. So you can imagine what we can do. I believe that the fundamentals, the basic of this technology is in two parts: the device and connectivity, because you can have your computer and you don't have internet access, or you can have internet access, you don't have a good a device that has the capability to do a whole lot of things that you want. And now let's talk about, remember, you have to put this question, it's a challenge. How can we, even as educators, as we call ourselves, as researchers, I know most of you have PhDs, most of you may perhaps doing PhD, most of you have good ideas. We should be thinking about the future of Africa and how can we, face the challenges, of modern education with technology. And I'm going to share a few, remarks, a few challenges that we face. And this will also give us an opportunity to think beyond digital technologies. There's so many technologies that we still lack, and some are very basic. in Africa. The first one is digital divide, in Africa. If we compare ourselves with the other continents or our counterparts in Europe or in North America, we'll still know that we still celebrate the use of technology and the access, but there's still so many people, that do not have access to this technology, and this is one thing that we should be asking ourselves. How can we close, the digital divide gap when it comes to access to technology, especially digital technologies? Well, let's take, for example, effect of COVID-19 on global education. You can imagine 990 million people by 2021 in February were affected. Student learners were affected. 56% of them do not have access to connectivity in terms of internet access. And 50% of them, of the students, do not have access to, computer device. So this is our reality, and we face this even in South Africa. When I was, sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. There's construction, something, drilling going on there. We face this, and this really disrupts the flow of the way we teach. We on one side we celebrate the technology, and how it's transforming the education system. But on the other side, it shows the reality of the divide, the gap between the rich and the poor, and the access to education. And this is one of the things we should be asking ourselves. How can we face these challenges? How can we be louder about the missing link, the people that are actually left behind when it comes to the use of technology, innovative technologies? We're talking about, every child, the need for every child to actually use digital, to have digital skills, because, as I said, the future of jobs rely on digital technologies and, of course, other technological advancement as well. Only 17% of schools have access, to internet access, in least developed countries. This is something we should remind ourselves of. I would tell you that if you are listening to me today, and if you are registered, if you are a student, you should count yourself privileged. And this is one of the things we actually forget, to realize, we shouldn't be carried away with the technology itself. We should look at the enabling power of the technology, and to bring people, out of poverty, to bring people out of their low states. And these are the people that we should be thinking about, especially in the African continent. We're talking about how learners can learn in the dark. And this our reality also now in South Africa. I know before everything now got improved with ESCOM, I know how badly the lack of electricity, ESCOM saga actually affected my research and the learning process. Even in classes were sometimes had to be canceled or postponed because of lack of electricity. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you go deep into other countries, and this is where you should think about, not only when we talk about technology, we are not only talking about digital technology, we're talking about electricity. We're talking about how can we make solar technology accessible in a way to transform education, to transform, transfer of skills, to enhance transfer of skills, and bring people out of poverty. Because when we talk about education, we're talking about a tool that can bring you out of poverty. And we're saying, we're talking about least developed country. You might say, oh, but you are not from least developed country. But this is actually our reality. The stat might be peculiar to least developed country, but we know that we also suffer this even in South Africa. we're talking about how can technology be used to enhance the training. Remember, the definition of education is the transfer of knowledge. You cannot give what you don't have. And this also applies to us, applies to me as an academic. I always think when we say that the future of jobs that do not even exist now is what is going to be the future. So then it's my responsibility to teach, to transfer relevant skill sets that can actually enhance, the future of our youth, of the next generation. But then how can I make technology, how can technology be used as a tool to empower myself as a researcher, to empower myself as a promoter? And that's the question we should be asking ourselves. It goes beyond focusing on the student itself, but education, technology itself can be used as a tool to transform the way we also teach. Let me move to the next one. I'm coming to the close now. Another thing we should think about is, lack of basic amenities in our schools. We talk about this. When we talk about it, we often look at, okay, primary school and other, but in some university, you have to go to Nigeria, you will see that there's lack. Even here at UJ, you'll be surprised. It's not really a lack, but hygienic condition of our toilets. So these are the things that if you think deeply, you know that it's not only about just the knowledge. It's about also other things that surround that can enhance. And technology is very, very central to that. We're talking about big things about gender disparity when it comes to education. How can technology help close this disparity? And in fact, the economic disparity. We know that if you are from a rich family, you have a chance of finishing earlier or completing or having higher education compared to someone that is poor. How can technology as a tool, how can innovation can be used, to transform, to close this gap in a way that there's no one is actually left behind. This is another start that I would like to show. And lastly, before I close, we're talking about, and we see all this not little, young people roaming the street and all that. I think as we talk about access, as we talk about the power of technology and this innovation, I think there must be more emphasis on the access to these technologies and to this innovation so that no one is left behind. So again, we know that quality education, by the way, is central to all the sustainable development goals. And we know that technology can make it a reality. Our to-do list should be, how can we provide quality education for all using technology as a tool, to transform the education sector and also have an impact on the society. I thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Prof. Thank you so much, sir. That was a very educative and challenging presentation to us also. Thank you so much. So I believe so much, especially on the closing the digital divide, and it's very, very, I don't want to say sad that we have just 17% of schools have internet access. But I believe for all participants today, we should focus on using the enabling power of technology and education like Prof has presented today to change not only our lives as individuals, but also the society. My name is Opeyemi. I will be standing in as a moderator for this conference. And on behalf of our dear President, President Bolanle James, we want to apologize to Prof for calling you so early. We are just changing the schedule of the event. We are very, very sorry for that, sir. But nevertheless, as Prof, you delivered very well without giving you time to settle down. We are sorry for that, and at the same time, we appreciate the presentation, sir. Personally, education must be treated in such a way that we develop ourselves and also we develop our society. And I believe participants here has also learned one or two things from the presentation. We'll go to the next presentation. It's Professor Bolanle Ikotun. Prof. Ma?
Yes.
You have the floor. You have the floor, Ma. And I want to say thank you for agreeing to be here with us this morning. Thank you so much, Ma. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Let me share my slide. It says I can't share. I don't know.
I'll sort out the
You can share,
sharing.
man. You can share, man.
Can you see what I'm sharing?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me put it in the slideshow. Okay, we say good morning, everyone, and I'm glad to be here today. I'm excited to be invited, and thank you for the great work you are doing. Let me put it in slide. Where's my slideshow? Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I'll say good morning once again. Thank you, Prof, for that presentation. It was so insightful and it was so educative. And starting from that angle, I think that is the best way to start this conversation. I want to welcome and thank everyone that have invited me, the executive of the Nigerian student at University of Johannesburg. I'm actually part of you. I finished my PhD at UJ, so I can say I'm part of the group.
Wow.
So today I have tweaked the topic in a way, just like what Prof said when he started the presentation, to say because we're given the same topic, it's better to just look at a certain angle to the presentation. So I'll be looking into the innovation and technological advancement in promoting teaching and learning at higher institution. Because when we talk of higher institution, it's about teaching and it's also about learning. And when we look into advancement in the technology sector, we realize that it's not just about the learning, it's also about how are we teaching. So I'll be talking around that this morning, and it's not going to be that long, it's a brief, but I think the discussion can lead us to further discussion. So the presentation has been outlined in this manner. Firstly, I want to just say something about technology. What is technology? We've been hearing a lot about that. Recently, a lot of discussion has been going around innovation, technology, AI, ChatGPT, and all that. But when we look at it from the basis, what does it actually what is it actually? What is it talking about? So we can define technology as the application of knowledge for achieving practical goals in a reproducible fashion. It can be replicated and repeated. So it's a tool which can be used for the application of knowledge to achieve a particular goal, and in such a way that you can repeat it over and over and expect to get the same result. And it can be categorized into tangible items and not tangible items. So when we talk about technological advancement in terms of machineries, in terms of tools, in terms of what products, in terms of what we use in the laboratory, in something that you can handle, then that is those category under tangible items. But when we talk about the softwares and what we are talking right now about AI and all that, those are non-tangible. So we have technological advancement, not just only in the IT sector or in the software sector, but we can also look at it from the angle of product, from the angle of machineries, from the angle of tools that we use in teaching and learning. And there is a long history behind technology based on historical regions, type of technology and technological timelines and eras, because the advancement that we see in technology actually depends on a lot of factors. Some of it will be the locality, where are you, the location that you are based, because the experience you have in terms of the technology you're exposed to is different from the experience somebody else will have in different locality, maybe in the rural area or more advanced community. So the experience in terms of technology differs based on the historical background of wherever you are, and also in terms of the exposure. You may be in an environment whereby it has been advanced in technology, but you as a person you are still way behind. And so it depends on the location, it depends on the individual, it depends on the exposure, and also it depends on the era. What we call innovation these days was something that the people in the past could not even imagine. They could not even imagine that things that we are experiencing in this generation could ever be experienced. For example, in the days where there were no cell phones, there were no computers and all that, they still lived their lives, they still managed whatever that was there. But they couldn't even imagine that there would be a time whereby the cell phone will become something we can do, we can hardly do about. Like you can't, it's like everything about one's life, it depends on that cell phone. They couldn't think or imagine that a time will come when such thing will become a big deal, because at the time it was not there. So just like what Prof said, Fawole said, in terms of if now we can't even imagine what will be the career of the future, what will be what the future will look at as this is the career of the day. Why? Because its technology is advancing in a way, in a geometrical dimension. So when we talk about technology, the term technology is dated back to the 17th century, originating from two Greek words, techne and logos. And this is very important. I actually want to talk about this because it will also be like a basis of what we'll be talking about today. Techne means act and craft, while logos means word or speech. So it means that if we actually want to engage technology, there is that aspect of knowing, which is the act of it and the craft of it and the skill development of it. There is no technology, either tangible or not tangible, that does not require skill advancement. There is that aspect at which we have to learn how to use that technology, either a machine, either an equipment, either softwares. There is that art and craft that is being embedded that must be known. And again, it's not just knowing about it, there is that aspect of communicating, that aspect of impacting that technology for the purpose it has been created for. So we have this tool, and you have this tool is there, but the knowledge of it is not there, then it becomes useless. But you know how to handle or use this technology, but at the same time, there is no impact of that technology to the society, which now talks about the speech, the word, the communication around that technology for the use of the purpose it has been created for. So when we talk about about technology, we also must think about advancement in terms of skill and also pathway at which this technology can be utilized to achieve the purpose. And of course, when we talk about education, because our focus today is about education, when we talk about education sector, it means that this technology must be able to be translated into teaching and learning, because what we do in education is basically teaching and learning. So if there is no teaching, there can be no learning. And if we don't have students that are ready to learn, then the teachers are useless. So the teaching and the learning in terms of the technology that we have and that is being presented and is being developing daily must be incorporated into our teaching and into our learning. It must be learned, the skill must be developed, and it has to be communicated to the right quarters. Right. Technological innovation has brought a lot destructive transformation of existing systems and sectors and setting up new ones. So what it means when we talk about technologies is evolving or we have new innovation, it means that whatever is there that was there in the past is either it's been updated, upgraded, or is being put aside. That means no more useful. So we have different transformation that has been taking place. Some are now become abandoned, some have been improved, some have been improved to a better way of use, while setting new ones. So according to McKinsey and Company 2022, African tech startups tripled to about 5,200 companies between 2020 and 2021. And of course, we know why this happens. The previous speaker talked about COVID. Actually, COVID has really, really opened our eyes to a lot of things in terms of technological advancement. So between 2020 and 2021, and that was, of course, after during the period of COVID and all that, people will begin to see a new way of living, a new way of communication, a new way of handling things. And it's reported that like about 5,200 companies where, we have startups around that number. So what is it telling us? It's telling us that we cannot run away from technology. We're just starting. So the sectors that is notable to have enjoyed technological innovation include the fintech industry, the finance industry, the banks and financial institutions, and education, like edtech sector, as we are talking about today. Education has also seen a notable improvement in technology and innovation that has now been what we are using. We have the legal tech, the legal sector, we have the property sector, the health sector, and other sectors like that. But notably, we have these ones that have engaged and they have accepted and technology within that space. So, but the main agenda is to deliver faster, simpler, and more efficient solution to day-to-day challenges or problems. So the main idea of improvement in technology or having new innovation in technology is to make sure that the way we live becomes simpler, like we deliver faster, we do things, I know in a matter of seconds to solve problems, or challenges that we're facing. But in this presentation, I will be narrowing down to the education sector and to see how have we evolved, in terms of technology. Where are we at the moment, and what is that telling us? What is that saying to us? Right. The next slide is looking at the evolution of technology in the classroom. So when we talk about teaching and learning, our mind goes to teachers and students. And when we look at teachers and students, our mind goes to classrooms. Of course, classroom has become different things these days. Classroom can be in your bedroom, your classroom can be in your office, your classroom can be anywhere. Why? Because there is that technology in which you can join your lectures wherever you are. But now look at from 1564. We have, I won't be reading each one of them, but I just want us to go through looking at where we started from as far as education sector is concerned in terms of teaching and learning. But there is something that is unique, which I've seen in the trend. Of course, we look at pencils and all that up until we get to education technology apps. But then when we look at the trend, we see that we started from what we can call the tangible items, like I said in the previous slide. Like we have tangible items, then we have up until non-tangible items. You will see that we started from tangible items, things that we can hold, we can hold on, we can use, products, pencil, typewriters, chalkboard, things like that. Now it graduates until these days where we now have mainly when we talk about innovation in technology, the first thing that comes to our mind is not even about the tool. We look at IT, we look at AI, right? We forgot, but of course we still have improvement and technological advancement in terms of machineries, especially in field whereby you just have to work with your hands. Engineering, for example, you have to go to the lab, you have to work with, but of course things are changing now because now we have virtual laboratory, right? But there are some things that you just have to do with your hands. And even in that aspect, you will realize that even then, the equipment we use in the lab are now automated. Some of them are attached to computer, you run your thing, your computer gives you your result and all that. These are also part of the technological advancement we are talking about. But it has evolved from pencil, let me start from that, till what we are seeing today. But again, looking at all this, if I can have any of us, that which ones, or more than one, I believe, can you like confidently says, I know this one and I've used this one. It was there during my generation. Some of them have been upgraded. They are still part of what we use, like your personal computer. We still use computer, like we still have our online teaching. But then there are some of these technology that had become things of the past, that even the new generation, the present generation, they don't even know about it at all. They don't even know how it works. It becomes something else, like history now. So if we look at today's technology and we look at years to come, will it also be like this, in such a way that the generation at the time will also be thinking, okay, what is ChatGPT? Okay, what is this? So, good for thought anyway. But then I was thinking, in all of this, where is Africa? In all of this involvement and advancement, and improvement, because some is just like improvement upon improvement. But then where is Africa? Where are we, in terms of all this? Some of this technology never reached Africa. We never heard of them. We never used them, and they are already past. So I think it's high time and of course, it's not what we can only do by ourselves. Everybody has to be on board, the government, politicians, educators, everybody had to be on board to be able to rise to the challenge, of embracing this technology. So we have EdTech app stage. And what do we have presently in terms of the present technology in the classroom? I'm sure there are more, but I just put these ones down. And we'll talk about virtual reality. Virtual reality is like a simulated experience whereby it gives a sense. You can see like this guy now, wherever he is, it gives it a sense as if he is in a virtual world. And whatever is happening there on his face is what he's experiencing at that moment, right? I'm not sure, we've not incorporated this into our teaching and learning in Africa, to my understanding, but I'm sure other developed countries have been embracing this kind of technology into the classroom teaching. We have augmented reality, which is somehow higher than the virtual reality. In this case, whereby your reality is your real world, right? Is the real world. You control the presence, of whatever is happening in your real world, but technologically aided. So it's integrated. It's integration of the technology, the digital information to your real environment. And we have the artificial intelligence. I think there are so many discussions around this, so many debates. What is it talking about? I know in this generation, are we losing our jobs and all that? There are so many discussions around artificial intelligence, especially with this, the ChatGPT, and a lot of discussion around it. But then is a tool. Is a technological tool that can aid teaching and learning. I attended a webinar, and when this was being discussed, and one of the speakers that spoke said something about an experiment that was done, whereby the students were given a certain topic to investigate using ChatGPT, and but then the topic was given, you have to use that and get information. But at the same time, before that time, they've already been taught, they understand the topic, they understand what is expected to get, they understand that field. So they were asked to use that, and they have to do self-examination, check whatever the ChatGPT has given you as a solution, and critically analyze the result. And a lot of interesting results were shared to say, in terms of, sometimes they talk about depth, they talk about varieties of interpretation that the student received. And what is that saying? It's saying that, yes, we have this, we should not be afraid of whatever technology that is coming, but there is a way we can collaborate with it. There is a way we can incorporate it. There is a way we can combine that to whatever we are doing at the moment to enhance learning, to enhance teaching, right? So, but that doesn't mean that the technology is 100% perfect. Of course, there will be one or two things. Remember, this thing is being programmed even by humans. And how it works is a statistical model that replicates pattern that it can predict based on repetitive patterns and things like that. So we have video games. I'm not sure if anyone is using that at the moment in their classroom, but something that can be looked into. We have video-based learning. This has been there for years, and where we have video conferencing, but now it has been enhanced with several tools that we can now use, MS Team, Google Classrooms, and things like that. And we have collaborative technology. When we talk about collaborative technology, we can look at it in two ways. We look at it in terms of the tool that we use. How do we collaborate tools? Whereby in your classroom, you don't only focus on one tool for teaching, and the students can learn using different kind of tools. You can use you can have hybrid of learning. And again, looking at it in terms of tool, we can also look at it in terms of people that are involved in that learning. We have teamwork, we have projects, we have assignment that brings people together to collaborate and to share ideas. And again, using different tools, so you don't limit your teaching or the learning experience into only one instrument, right? So we look at, in terms of the educational sector, technological intervention, and the areas at which we've seen improvement and the area at which we can see more improvement. In terms of our information communication technology, the ICT, of course, for each university, in the past, maybe there is not even a IT department, things like that. But now, of course, you can't run an institution or any organization without an IT department, because it forms a crucial part, because now you have to have the ICT involved in terms of it helps the student information system. Everything is online now. You don't carry paper around and be saying I'm registering. You can do everything online. You have your information stored online. It helps collaboration easily. You can send emails to your collaborators, to your colleagues, your students. You can share information within seconds, things that would take time in the past. You share information. It motivates learning, it improves engagement, and it also helps in knowledge retention and things like that. But again, even though some technology are being used in that section of educational sector, there are still a lot to be done. There are still things to be looked into. Sometimes we will hear the system is down, or sometimes you say, no, we need to increase the capacity of, so there is always something that needs to be improved. Teaching, when we talk about teaching, thank God for COVID in this aspect, because COVID had changed the way we teach, especially in regular university, whereby students have to come to classroom and to learn. Like at UNISA, that was not the case, because from day one, UNISA has been a corresponding correspondence university, whereby we engage students at the distance. But then COVID, at UNISA, we used to have video conferencing, where you still have to go to centers wherever you hear, and your lecturer is somewhere else and can teach, but you still have to take yourself and go physically. But then after COVID, we see that, okay, no, there's no need of moving from one place to another. You can even sit in your room and just connect and have your classrooms. So we have this being incorporated. We have digital assessment tools, whereby the students do their assignment, they submit online. There's no need of taking papers to their lecturers or wherever. We have digital assessment tool, they submit, and it's been marked online also. So we have the marking tools online. We have invigilators tools, invigilation tools, digital vigilation tools, and this is what we use at UNISA. When they write exam these days, they've been invigilated online. So we have this technology that is incoming and is improving the way we do our teaching and our learning. And in terms of research and development, I think we still have a long way to go as far as Africa is concerned in terms of research and technology. We are doing a lot of things, but we still have a long way to go in terms of coming up with something that is unique to our our problems, something that is unique to our locality. Remember, when we talk about technology, I said technology advance also depends on the location that you have, depend on the history of that location, depends on the era and the timeline. So there are some things that the developed world had already, enjoyed already. To them is something that is obsolete, but we still have that situation whereby we are still at that, we've not even embraced it. We are still talking about it. We are still thinking about it. So these are the things for people that are in IT, wherever, and even in any field now, you can't run away from it. We all have to, be, to open our mind to technology in the space that we have. We talk about equipment and infrastructures. This talks about our laboratory equipment. And in this case, we've seen a lot of changes, in what we use, a lot of changes in our equipment in the lab, and how we can use them without even, maybe before you have to be in lab for 5 hours to monitor an experiment, but now you don't have to do that. You just have to set it up, you go, then you come back, your result is there for you. So we have improvement, in that sector. Our library, the way the library is being run these days, you can sit in your room and you can get your book from the library, from the online and all that. So we have improvement, but then we still have a long way to go in terms of having a solution for our specific problems within our continent. So some of the benefits of increased technology could be, of course, it can increase literacy. People, for example, like I was talking with somebody and he's talking about accountancy. Say, there's no way you can do you can do accountancy without having the knowledge of computer. But before it was not like that, because it's just, it's just calculation and all that, and maybe you just have your simple Excel and everything is fine. But these days you can even go into your developing software and doing this for what. So there is no field that can run away from technology advancement. That's what I'm trying to say. No matter the field that you are in, there is no way you can run away from, because in that field there must be something that can be developed to make life easy for you in that particular field. So it also increases employability, because the employers these days is one of the things they want to see, the skill you have that can help their organization. Of course, it encourages lifelong learning, because now education and learning is not stuck in the classroom any longer. Everywhere you are is your classroom. You have your cell phone is your classroom. You are just sitting and waiting for a bus, or sitting in the airport. You take your cell phone and you can check a topic and you can read about it. You are learning. So it encourages this lifelong learning. And some of the challenges that we are facing is, first, limited financial resources. Is expensive. Depending anyway, but it could be expensive. And especially if we want to rise to that level of advancement that we are seeing in the Western world, it's capital intensive. Yeah, and of course, we have lack of strong competition in the private sector, political instability, and lack of political will. Because just like I said, if we want to see what we expect to see, is everybody has to be involved. The politicians, the government, the teachers, the students, parents, everybody has to be involved. And lack of long-term investment in the technology field, poor economic growth. Of course, that is also linked to the limited financial resources and limited capacity of infrastructure and technology skilled manpower. And sometimes we lack the people, the know-how. And just like, remember, when we started, we talked about technology is the skill, the act and the craft. We talked about the skill, and also we talk about the communication aspect of it. So we need the skilled. We need the people that can work in that space. And that is why all of us should rise up to this task. And now let's, I think I'm almost ending. So what should be our attitudes toward innovation and technology in academic space? What should be our attitude? Should we be afraid of what is happening? And remember, this is just our generation. Generation to come, this will become things of the past because new things will come. So should we be afraid of it, or should we reject it, or should we try to defend our status quo and say, no, we are being boxed in this way of doing things and we don't want to go out of that? So I think our attitude, in my own thinking, is that first we should understand the dynamics, understand what is happening in the space, how is it evolving? And if you look at the slide I showed in terms of the evolution of technology in the academic space, at the beginning, if you look at the gap between the years at which we see new things is wide. But these days, it's so close, per second, per minute, things are happening, new things are coming out. So, but we need to understand the dynamics, understand what is changing, what is happening in my space, what are those new things that are now in place, involved, and then how can, then in that case, what am I supposed to do is to embrace the change. We should embrace the changes. We should look at the positive part of it, embrace it. If there's any negative part of it, we try to improve that and we embrace it. If we need to incorporate it in our teaching and learning, we do that so that we have a collaborating learning, and we drive to offer more STEM subjects. Just like we talk about the skill, there is no way we can be part of what is happening if the skill is missing. So one of the things that we can do as in education space is to see how we can offer more STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering subjects into, and starting even from primary. Starting from there, I'm sure now a lot of things, some schools are doing coding already. So these are the thinking to say, things are changing. It's not the same as it has been, but how do we now put it in curriculum updates? Yes, this is important because we can't keep teaching the same thing we've been teaching for 10 years, for 5 years, for 7 years, and expect that the graduate of that will be able to meet up with the challenges they will meet, because things are changing, technology is still changing. So our curriculum must also constantly be updated. And then we should also include, when we talk about embrace the changes, of course, there should be room for training the trainers, because the lecturer, the teachers that will be trained need also to be trained. And we incorporate this in our teaching and learning. We find a way of merging whatever we are doing presently with what is happening now. We try to merge it. We try to find a way. We should not run away from it or be scared about it. And a new mindset about assessment. This is very important. How do we assess, and how can our assessment be relevant in this present state of transport technological changes? Because we have to think of how we assess our students. Do we just give a question, just say, what is this, or just define this, whereby they can quickly type it in and all the answers are there? Is that the way we are assessing the student? We need to ask critical, we need to give questions that will require critical thinking, that even if they put it on wherever and they get answer, it will not be into depth as each is expected, in terms of something that will make them to think out of the box. So we need to have a new mindset about assessment. And of course, we use as support tools. We use them as support tools. We use them to support what we are doing. We use them to support the engagement we have with our teaching and our learning, right? So if they are not replacing the teaching and learning, is just to support what we are doing presently. And in conclusion, I would say that technology has been an essential part of our society for decades, especially in the education sector, and it is constantly changing, improving, and diversifying. For the higher education sector to experience continuous advancement in technology, the government and every stakeholder should determine to embrace the change and play their part. We have to play our part. And in closing, I would like to say this quote by Alan Watts, that the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you for the inspiring and insightful presentation. Thank you so much. For my own take-home from the presentation, as one is a question and also is a challenge. Like I was looking at the timeline for Edu Tech from 1957 or so, the pencil, down to the predictive analysis that we have now. I was like, where is Africa? You asked the question, where is Africa? I was like, was it documented? Was it not documented? What happened? Were our ancestors writing on the walls? And also, there's much to be done in each of our field, especially on the R&D. So like Prof. rightly said, we should look into there's something. I specifically said, she said there is something that can be done in each of our field that we can use innovations and technology to address. And like the 7 attitudinal change that she has proposed, I would like each and every one of us to please have a change of mindset. We should understand the dynamics of technology in our respective field, and we should embrace our changes to see how it can better a lot. And also, we should take note of the tools that are ready in our field. How can we use these tools? How can we use this technology as a support tool? So once again, Prof, thank you so much, Ma. Thank you so much, Ma. We are very, very grateful on behalf of our President and the Executive Council. I want to say thank you so much, Ma. Before the next presentation, we want to have questions and answers for our keynote speakers. We want to also appreciate the presence of Professor Fawole that is still with us. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you for giving us your time. Thank you so much, Prof. Ikotun. Questions and answer, please just raise up your hands. I will recognize you and we'll take it up from there. Questions, please. Yes, I can see one hand. Another question and answer. Okay, Mr. Okay, and Dr. Patrick, thank you so much. Mr. Kenneth, your question, then I will now call Dr. Patrick. Mr. Kenneth, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Love, and thank you so much to the presenters. Honestly, I so much enjoyed the presentations. My question is, I think is something I would like both presenters to throw more light on, because both presenters spoke on technology, the recent technologies and every other thing associated with it. Now, looking at where we are coming from, like our own country, in as much as, because the second presenter, Professor Bola, made mention of, we need to do more in terms of research and all that, which, yes, that is true. But my challenge has been that there's so much gap between research and then implementation, particularly when it comes to our country of birth. So I want to ask, because the reason I said I would like both presenters to throw more light to speak to the question, I want to know the role. What's the role? Because the second presenter made mention of the role of the government. Yes, in terms of the politicians, they have roles to play in terms of implementation and all that. However, we have seen that the political will is not there. So my question is, what is the role of the academia in forcing the hands of the government or the politicians to ensure that, you know, all these things you are talking about are implemented? Because just like what Professor Bola mentioned of, these things, they're capital intensive, and it's not just only in one discipline. Maybe let's say let's say construction, the construction industry, for example. It's not only just in construction industry, it's the same with every other industry. If you permit me, I would just like to give an example. I remember when I was staying in Nigeria, a friend of mine who happens to be in an industrial chemistry department, we went to a presentation, a PhD presentation, and what the person actually presented on, you know, after the whole presentation, my friend told me something. He said, do you know what this man presented on? Is actually, the chemical is actually currently being imported to the country. However, the result of the research is proposing something like discovered some trees in the country where similar chemical or same chemical can be gotten from. However, I can bet you that after the whole presentation, the person is awarded the degree, and at the end of the day, it's just like everybody goes to sleep. So my question now is, what is the role of academia in forcing the hand of the government? Because if we leave them like that, I can bet you that from what we have seen so far, the political will is not there, and I don't think it will be there in the nearest future. So what can we do in academics to ensure we force the hands of these politicians and government agencies to ensure they do their job for us to see the implementation of these things we are talking about? Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll call on the first keynote speaker, Professor Fawole. Then I want to call on Professor Ikotun. Professor.
Thank you for the question. You touched on many things, and of course, the government has a role to play. And of course, the political will must be there. If you look at the contribution or the percentage of the GDP that goes towards education, for a big country like ours, you will say that it's quite low. You know, it's very, very low compared to even other African countries. But when you talk about how to force the hands of the government, I don't think that's a fair question. I think you cannot. I think you should look at it holistically. You just mentioned now that someone had a degree in a university. What's the role of that government? What's the role of the government in the example that you gave? I think we should. I think it has to do with our mindset, the way we think, the way we actually see education, even as academics in Nigeria. I think we should also go into how much support, apart from of course, the contribution from the GDP to education is very small, but the little that is being contributed, to what extent do we actually maximize it? What do we do with them and other? And we have another parallel scenario in Nigeria, the private universities that are doing very well. They're doing, in fact, that someone like me can be very proud to collaborate and can say that I could read a paper from a university, a private university like Bowen, and say, wow, this is a good paper, this good research, you know, and I would like to have their students to come and do, you know, PhD with me. So I think we also have the issue of ASU. They tried it. They try to force the hand. Of course, they're also fighting for salary increase and so many other things. But I think this should be a kind of we should take stock of our education system, and of course, having good leadership is central to that. The willpower, we all know that for any implementation, good policy can contribute more than, for good implementation, good policy can contribute up to 50, not 50, 80% for any successful implementation of any idea. Just put policy, because they have the power. If they say today, things will change, we have to do it better. The government, they just need to pass the legislation and all that, but then they cannot force academics to do good research, even if the money is there. So we need to, I think, and that comes with the power of technology, and again, the willingness to actually enhance the power, to mine that power of technology. You know, I've been in a conference where an academic coming from Nigeria to present a poster, not even an oral presentation, but the poster is A4 papers, like A4 papers put together and stuck on the, about 20 A4 papers. That's a poster. That was a poster of the academy. What image are you actually trying to portray? And even if we force the hands of the government, how would that change that that image we are portraying? So I think my short answer is it's not about forcing the hand. And by the way, my mentor actually won the African Union award, and he was invited by Buhari. I think it was Buhari, yeah, Buhari. And the government recognizes excellence, Nigeria, excellence out there, and that's why they are even willing to bring people like us to come over and all that. But then we should make it systemic. It should be a holistic approach, not only forcing the guy, because they also know that even if they give so much, to some extent, nothing will be done, because they have no influence, or they have no control over they cannot dictate the kind of research you should do or the quality of research. So instead of synthesizing the chemical is being imported. The person hand the degree. What can the government say? What can they do? Or how is that their fault? So that's the short answer. I'm sure Prof. Ikotun will have more to say on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Prof. Yes, Prof. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Prof. Fawole. I thought you have said everything, that I don't have to say anything again. But yes, when we talk about, of course, we have our dynamic problems and issues at home in terms of leadership and all that. But I think maybe the where to start from to get recognized, and for them to see that yes, something is happening in the academic space, is to find a way of transforming our research into products, in things that they can see, things that can have impact and value. I know I was in a conference in Nigeria last year, and I think that was one thing that people were emphasizing on, to say, yes, all these papers that people came to present and everything, then what happened is, then that is the end of it. That was I think the chair of one of the session that kept on saying that, okay, I've heard all these things, then what will be the end of all these presentations, and the paper is tired of just hearing and nothing is happening. But I think if we as researchers have firstly in mind to say, enough of research that ends only on paper, I want to do something that can be turned into a product, or something that people can see and say, yes, this is a solution of what this person has been researching on. And how we can do that is, first, let's look at, let's collaborate with the industry. Let's collaborate with the industry. I think we can do the research, we get the result, we have our findings, we know, okay, it can work this way, it cannot work that way. But how do we now implement it to actually see that it works? If we say it will work, is to collaborate with the industry. And there is a problem again about that, because the interest of the industry is to make money. The interest of this industry is business. So I think that is where the problem now comes to say, okay, you want to see your research implemented and see how it works, but they are actually looking at, okay, if it works, how much is it bringing to the industry and all that? But I think let's start from where we are. Our government, we can't put all the blame on them and say, okay, they must solve all the problems for us. But if we start from where we are, number one, our mentality to say, my research should not just end up on the paper and on my wall and like that, but let me take a step further and have collaborators within the industry such that they can test my hypothesis, they can test my findings, they can see that, okay, maybe something can be done here. And once that is done, then maybe one can approach, okay, we are talking of Nigeria now. One approach avenues whereby they can listen, they can hear, one can present and say, this thing has been tested, it has been checked, this is a result. And we can have a breakthrough, you know, in terms of sponsors, in terms of even collaborators from the government sector. But then we need to start from ourselves and start from where we are. Let's change our mindset. Let's change our thinking. Let's find a way of collaborating with the industry. Sometimes we don't even need to start anything from our side. Let's go there. Let's just engage. Let's just talk and let's see what are their problems. What are they facing? What solution do they are trying to find out within their space in that organization? And we take that to the lab. We take that to our space, you know, in the academy, and we coined out like a proposal around that problem that we've identified in the industry. And then we do that having in mind that we are trying to solve a problem. So once we start solving problem, it will be noticed. And again, our government, of course, we can't have the solution we are expecting in terms of innovation, technology advancement, and all that without the involvement of the government. And just like Prof. Fawole says about the policies and all that. But we pray that everything will be fine in our country, but we need to start from where we are. Let's start from where we are, then we see how that involves, and we see to what extent that can take us.
Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you so much, Ma. I believe our profs are hinging on the fact that we ourselves as researchers, we should have a competent mindset to ensure that we have quality research for ourselves, and also the collaboration with the industry. I think this is also where we have to look into the quintuple headless innovation system, whereby we look at the perspectives of the academia, the government, the industry, the civil society organizations, and also the natural environment in terms of our research output, so that we could have a commercialized product or practical policy dimensions from our research. Dr. Kenneth or Mr. Kenneth, I believe, are you satisfied with questions, or you want more clarifications?
Okay, Doctor. Thank you. Thank you so much, professors.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thanks, sir. I'll call on Dr. Patrick for his questions.
All right, thank you very much. I'll still direct my questions to both professors, and I'll just make a little kind of observation, then I'll ask them. Is an applied question. when Prof was making the first presenter was making his presentation, I was touched by the video when the slide when he asked a particular question about toilets not being available in our institution. The fact was I did all my schooling in Nigeria to PhD level, and I must say this. I don't even know it can be toilets for students in a faculty or just beside a lecture theater. We never had one. When we are pressed on campus, we just go behind the wall where there are bushes, or if it's something you cannot, if it's weed, you just go there, but if it's not, you take a bike and go back to your hostel. So even here at UJ, at each point at the faculty, just beside the lecture theater, they have a bathroom, and you see these cleaners cleaning every day. There are tissues, always tissues in those bathrooms. Those of us who are at UJ will confirm this. Though there is not perfect, but coming back from that our background in Nigeria, what we are seeing here is like heaven on earth. Now, my question and my direction is this: we blame the government. I believe every professor in Nigeria who have got to that level of being a professor must at one point in his or her career have this thinking a foreign university out of the country, either for research fellowship as a postdoctoral fellow or for exchange program. And I believe these PhD holders who later became professors are still the ones who are vice chancellors of the university. And these people have traveled around the world. These people have done the fellowship. When you look at their citation, you look at their profile. At one point in time, they were basically researcher to this university in Germany, to this university in the US. And when they are turned to manage this university, they blame the government. And I, on my own, I've always told people in my political consciousness that Nigeria don't have the government problem. We have the people problem, because these people involved will become government tomorrow. So if somebody comes to UG, for example, as a PhD student, you saw the facilities, you saw what you enjoy, you came back home and you are now in charge of investing, and you cannot implement one thing. Even when you become president of that country, you still are going to have that challenge. So my question to the first presenter today is, we are gathered today as members of the Congress of Nigerian Students, here to study, here to acquire degrees. And tomorrow we'll be going back to, whether I like it or not, someday we are going to go back home. Even if we don't want to go back home, we might be given an appointment that will go whether the headman of this institution. What will be your advice? How we can contribute now and in the near future to the development of our investing back home, our educational setup back home? How can we, the PhD students, the master students, all of us in the foreign institution right now, how can we make a contribution? What are the facilities? What are the things we can put in place? For the second presenter, Madam Professor, I was fascinated by your slide when you talked about the evolution of technology from using chalk on the board. But it will still be surprising to know that our lecturers today still take thesis, evaluation or whatever on hard copies. Here at UG, we don't use hard copies. You want to make your thesis or whatever, you just mail it to your supervisor in a Word document, he makes the correction and send back to you. Back home, our professors, our learners still doing. Here at university, now some have migrated to using marker on the board. But registration, communication, memos is still done with hard copies. Even to get verification from SACWA, they sent to this university. Some of the universities don't even have the technology to even receive these emails or to reply back. You have to have somebody on ground. So, Madam, what do you think? Just like I said to the first presenter, we say we are the futures of tomorrow. How can we, in our own little way, make contribution into development of that particular sector back to our home country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, patriotic Dr. Patrick. Thank you, sir. Professor Ikotun.
Okay, should I start? Because this for the second question, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. So I think my answer will still be the same. Start from where you are. How can you start? You can't live where you are and go to the top and be demanding change. We have to start the change from where we are. So in terms of the universities still use hard copies for their day-to-day activities. I don't know to what extent is that. I'm sure maybe private university will be better, but I'm in a committee of like the conference I was saying that I went last year. We're planning another one because they're actually collaboration with my research group. But all our communication has been online. There was nothing paper or anything, even within the people there in Nigeria. Like everything we talk on email, we have our meetings on MS Teams. Even there we have majority of the committee members in Nigeria, and they use this technology. You know, of course, we can't say this is new now because it's been there for some time, but we talk. You know, we have meetings. So I'm sure that bit by bit it is coming into the system. So what we can do, for example, if you are going back home, maybe you have an appointment and you are going there, you enforce it within your space. When you talk to your students, use your email. Of course, you see them in class and all that, but when you want to communicate, you use the email. And when whatever you think you can do within that small space that you have, let's start. If every lecturer do that within their space, gradually it goes up. It goes to the management. Gradually within the faculty, within the faculty, if that policy is there, if you want to talk to your lecturer, if you want to do we don't want hard copy, send email, send this. So gradually it comes there. It will get to the top gradually. But because sometimes you don't have that power to change everybody or to change everything or to change the system. But the only power you have is to start from yourself. Then when you get to that environment, whatever you do, you influence the people around you, your colleagues that are there. And again, I think awareness and communication, we should not keep quiet. We should have engagement. We should talk about this. We are having this now. There's nothing that stops us to also invite maybe people that are in Nigeria, our colleagues, lecturers in Nigerian universities. I'm sure, what is it called? The private sector, the private university are doing much more better in terms of using technology and all that. I'm sure, I believe that even their registration will be online. But when we look at our public universities, maybe that is where one of these issues are coming up. We can invite, of course, we have collaboration there, we have networks and all that, we can invite them for this kind of conversation, discussion, awareness. Let's talk about it. If we keep quiet, everything will just be the way. But if we keep talking about it, they see, because just like you said, an average academic travel, maybe for a conference, for something, they have something to do outside Nigeria, and they see what is happening. We see what is happening. We see the improvement in, even when we talk about South Africa, there are things that we are still believing that should improve in South Africa, because when we travel out to other developed countries, we see how they undo their things, and we felt, okay, this is not happening where we are, it should improve. So what I'm saying is this: what we can do within our space and within the stage that we are is that we try to first engage our networks, our collaborators. Let's engage them in conversation, discussion, right? And let's see, that change will come gradually if everyone involved. is ready to change. So I will say again, in short, that the change starts from you. The change starts from me, and not keeping quiet.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you, Ma. We'll now go to Professor Fawole. Professor.
Thank you. If you can remind me of the question. So the question was, if I got you right, for us going back home, how can we contribute our little to Nigeria? Was that the question? Because I understand my question was different from Prof. Ikotun's question.
Yeah, I think what I asked was, use your toilet as a case study. That how can we, based on your presentation and the things you highlighted, how can we, not depending on the government, how can we make our little contribution? Where do we start from?
Where do we start from?
Do we go and say what to be the toilet, or where do we start from? Just an advice for us.
Yeah, it all boils down to change of mindset. The way you see, like you said, we all travel. Even people in Nigeria, academics in Nigeria travel to see how beautiful and how well cultured and how disciplined people are out there. And the moment you get back to Nigeria, it's like there's this cloud. I mean, you wouldn't go to US and pee by the side of the road, but let me tell you a question. Let me tell you a story. I'm involved with the UNESCO International Center for Biotechnology in Nigeria. My mentor is setting it up, and we've been on this journey for a long period of time. And to him, it's a legacy project to be able to say that he established something. It's a big project, and I'm proud to be part of it. And one year like that, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, it's about 5 years ago. He brought some investors, like people that, because he's got this wide network, and he brought investors over to Nsukka, Nigeria, to come and see the project, and they were willing to contribute. I think it was $50 million into the project, but they said they wanted to see because they wanted to see that their investment, not really an investment, but they are putting money. Sorry, let me just end this call. That they are putting money into something that is right. And the first day, second day, they were happy. The third day, coming from lunch, they had good meals and all that. And with the entourage, a lot of group of people, even from the University of Nsukka and all that. So they were walking, and then one of the high-level academics, I won't mention which position, the top management ran by the other side of the road and pee by the other side of the road. These people saw. And when they got to, after the day, they were going to make their verdict and all that, they said, Linus, my mentor is Professor Linus. Linus, we're impressed what we saw and all that, and your projects, we know your mission, your vision and all that, but we wouldn't put money into this. You see people peeing around, doing all sorts of things. That's lack of mentality, lack of right mindset, that we cannot put money in. It's not only about the project, it's about the people and the mindset of the people. That alone shows that if you don't know that you should go and use the toilet or wait or do something or invest in basic infrastructure, then we cannot build your life for you. Basically, that's what they told him. And that's how the money was off the table. So what am I trying to say? It all starts with the mindset. Take a look at the war against indiscipline years back in Nigeria. 2 things that are critical to that. The government wanted us to change our mindset, the way we think, in terms of hygiene. You cannot go by the roadside pee, you cannot spit, you cannot throw things out of the window of your car and all that. But then at the same time, the second thing is they must ensure that there's a mechanism in place for waste collection, for this and all that and all that. They must empower people to change their mindset. So two things are involved. The government must play its role. People must play their own role as well. In terms of complying, if there's an investment into making something better, then people must change their mind. So this boils down to four things when it comes to how can we contribute our own. First, we need to change our mindset. I wrote something here. And when it comes to changing our mindset, we have two things to also consider.
I think there's a connection issues over there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, sir.
Okay, so I was saying there are two things. We want to change our mindset, but we want to change our mindset to something better. So that means we need to be competent as an academic to have the right skill sets. The second thing is for us to have the ethical standard, because that's the only way. If you want to change your mindset, you want to change your mindset from one to the other. So what are you changing your mindset to? What's the desired outcome? For you to achieve that desired outcome, you have to be ethically upright. You have to have the competence standard to improve that situation. And the other thing is we often think, okay, only if I'm called, I'm hired, or I'm given money to do X, Y, and Z that I can do it. No, you can also volunteer. You can approach a university or a school that I would like to offer my skill set. I would like to give a lecture. We give lectures from here, from all over the world, and the internet has made it so easy. So we can contribute our quota in our own little way. So there's no constraint when it comes to if you want to contribute, how can we? It's all about, are we willing to actually contribute to the development of our country? And the role of mentorship and leadership cannot be overemphasized. Mentorship is even different from leadership. Leadership at the governmental level. Mentorship, we lack mentorship. We lack role models in Nigeria, in Africa as a whole. And when it comes to that, because I believe mentorship, we have a good mentorship platform in Africa, it can actually be an instrument to change our mindset, to actually change how we see things. You see students graduate from outside of the country, they go back and they are completely different, doing something else with change mindset. Of course, the problem, they complain about the problems in Nigeria, but the question is, your mind, you won't think innovatively. Your mind will not be ignited if you don't talk about how can we change the lack of electricity, lack of infrastructure. We can talk about it from morning to night. But the question is, let us shift our focus to how can we change this situation? So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you so much, sir. We're going to the next keynote speaker, and that is Professor Nwulu Nnamdi, the Director for the Cyber-Physical Food, Energy and Water System. Prof, sir, you have the floor, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Prof. We can hear you, sir.
I believe fellow Nigerians, right? Let me just please share my screen. My apologies for coming late, but the time I was given was at 12:45, that I strove to make. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, sir. Okay, I think it's sharing. Yeah, we can see your sense.
Just a second. Can you see it now? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nnamdi. once again, it's a huge privilege to be here. Thank you to the organizers for facilitating, right, and for inviting me. And also thank you to the other distinguished professors, my colleagues. I've been following since I came in, and it's been rather insightful. I was given a topic, right, which I took the liberty to translate. All right. The topic I was given is how we could explore innovative technologies to balance and systematically transform education and society, right? And then I took the liberty to explore it in the way that I thought best, and of course, leveraging on my own particular skill sets, right? So yeah, so I thought to, yeah, I know if you're new J, the 4 hours sounds a cliche, right? Because I mean, everybody is quite aware of what it is, but I thought to, in my experience, people don't necessarily understand what actually is an industrial revolution in the first place. Talk less about appreciating the fact that most of the innovative technologies that we're trying to discuss actually are an end product of the current industrial revolution. So essentially, an industrial revolution is when new technologies, right, are essentially transforming the way we move, the way society works, society functions, right? That's an industrial revolution in essence. And then there have been a couple of industrial revolutions, and we are currently at the cusp of the fourth, right? We are at the beginning of the fourth, right? And then I believe that one of the key elements, right, of this revolution, right, or one of the, we said now an industrial revolution is when technology is transforming society in all its facets, right? And then the key characteristics, for want of a better word, of these technologies are cyber-physical systems, right? A cyber-physical system is a term coined by Helen Gill of the US National Science Foundation, right? And basically it talks about the intertwining, right, of cyber and physical systems, right? So the 4R essentially is the revolution of society as we know it due to advanced cyber physical systems in essence, right? And then this is a concept map of CPS, but I will not go through it. But I think in the blue, the light blue, I reckon, right, it gives us various applications of cyber physical systems. And I'm told that my job description today is to basically talk about it in the educational space and in a certain way, how it can also transform society. So very quickly, technologies of the 4R, right? They are either cyber or physical, according to me. Former VC Prof. Maraga often use cyber, physical, and biological. Biological would be biotechnology and some of those technologies. But my view, right, is that cyber physical, right, encapsulates most of the characterizations. So physical technology, biotech, in a way, you can argue that it's part of the physical world, right? So cyber technologies include anything that is generally cyber-based or cyber-oriented, right? ML, big data, AI. Of course, we are quite aware with the whole buzz about generative AI, right? I was speaking recently, and then somebody was stating that generative AI has proved more impactful, for want of a better word, to the wider society than blockchain technology, right? And then we would, if I have time, I will discuss about that, right? But I'm also trying to also write an op-ed along those lines, right? But then my feeling is that there should be integration between both technologies, but I'll talk about that later on. But those are all cyber technologies And then you have physical technologies, IoT, basically 3D printing, additive manufacturing, robotics, and everything. So essentially, the concept cyber-physical integration of both. I would like to narrow down on blockchain technology, right? A blockchain technology basically is a technology that leverages on a couple of other sub-technologies, right? Like peer-to-peer communication, private public security, an aspect of cryptography, right? Networked communication, right? So blockchain technology essentially encapsulates all of these sub-technologies together, right? And then basically, for what I often say is a blockchain technology is an aspect or is a type of a distributed ledger technology, DLT. And to really understand the technology, you just need to think about a ledger, right? A ledger that you have maybe in a business, basically, that is used to record information, right? So a ledger basically records information. Now think about the fact that a ledger typically is centralized. So if I run for want of a better word, a spaza shop or a mom and pop shop, right? In Nigeria, they call it a provision store, right? All those stores that you have by the corner, typically the inventory, those that have paid, those that are owing, is typically maintained in a book and is centralized. Now imagine that that process is now decentralized, so that the person that is selling that product keeps the record of everything, and then the customer, the supplier, every other person has access to that same record. That's essentially what blockchain is, right? It's a distributed ledger technology, and every participant would have access to that ledger, depending on the kind of access that is granted to the person, and then you're able to now write or read from that transaction. So it's actually a ledger, right, with various blocks, and information is added onto that block, such that everybody has access to that technology. And then it can be, any ledger can always contain any form of information. It can be cryptocurrency records, contracts, any form of information can benefit from this technology. So some of the things I have already said, it's a DLT, it's a database system essentially that leverages on peer-to-peer communication. It's very famous because of its use for cryptocurrencies, Ethereum and Bitcoin, and that's what most people know it for. But I think I said this in a very recent event where I was, that a lot of people are upset, or well, people are losing interest because of the various falling prices of cryptocurrencies. But then there are various use cases for the technology that can really solve pain points in society, and I would unpack a few in my presentation. It's a database, but it differs from a typical database in the way and manner it stores information, right? It stores it in blocks of data, and then they are chained together, hence the word blockchain, right? As new data comes in, it is entered into a fresh block, right? If there's no space in the prior one, and then once the block is filled with data, it is chained onto the previous block, which makes the data chained together in a chronological order. And a key element or characteristics of blockchains is that they are immutable, meaning that in the event that there is an error or there's a mistake, you would have to rewrite it again and correct that mistake. You cannot delete the prior record. Properties of the technology, distributed ledger technology, which a blockchain is the prime example, is distributed or decentralized, is programmable, for instance, smart contracts, is immutable, right? Is anonymous, so anonymity is maintained, right? And then there are a couple of others that I would not necessarily delve into. But now I think my JD, my job description from the brief given by the leadership of CONSUJ is to unpack how innovative technologies can actually transform society. Like I said, I took the liberty not to consider a host of technologies, but to focus on blockchain as a technology, right? Obviously, you could consider various technologies, and you could consider a hybrid or potpourri of the technologies, but I chose to just focus on blockchain technology, right? And then a key element of blockchain technology is transparency, right? For me, the acronym that I use to remember the key parameters or the key elements of blockchain is DTI, decentralization or distributed nature, transparency, and immutability. So blockchain basically shines the light on any area that it was hitherto, or any process that was hitherto opaque, right? And then we know that in Africa, there are a couple of such spaces where you have lots of intermediaries, and then there is an incentive, for people to profit off such opaqueness or those inefficiencies. So with blockchain, such processes can be made more efficient, right? And then, of course, once you shine the light, corruption only happens where there is where processes are opaque, right? And once you do so, once you shine the light, then hopefully the incentive for corruption is removed. So yeah, transparency, decentralization can address many of Africa's challenges, right? Africa has many developing systems that could benefit from this technology. The paramount one is elections, right? The Nigerians, we recently held elections, right? And unfortunately, the election was not the final arbiter, right? It now had to go to judges, right, who are now going to be the final arbiter, right? Both the folks that were declared winner and those that are opposing the winner can't actually say, or can't bring documentary evidence that is satisfactory to everybody about how, the whole process went. So, I mean, if the technology were leveraged, the technology such as blockchain, right, it would, one of the prime examples or systems that can benefit, from the technology is in the election space, the electioneering space, right? There's no reason why people cannot vote from their phones, their mobile phones, for instance, right? Integrated with some form of blockchain at the back end, right? And so that in real time or in near real time, right, the whole result can be visible to all, right? Digital payment infrastructures, right? It is the principal use case of the technology. Even in Africa, CVVC did a mapping of the blockchain ecosystem in Africa, and about 60% of blockchain cases, right, are in the remittances or in the fintech space, right? And so this is also an area where the technology can find significant application, especially as we try to accelerate intra-Africa trade. I was at a session with the African Export-Import Bank sometime recently, and then the problem of intra-Africa trade is a significant problem because if, for instance, two African nations have to trade, you either have to pay using the US dollars, for instance, right? You have to pay using another currency. And then in conversations about adopting a common currency in Africa, they've not been able to come to a consensus, right, about which currency should be deployed, because nobody would obviously want to, let go of their currency. So it restricts intra-Africa trade, and at the same time, what they're trying to do with even the AFCTA is that once you trade from maybe Morocco to Nigeria, you can either pay the Moroccan currency, or you can either pay in the Nigerian currency, or you can also pay with a foreign currency, like maybe the US dollars? What are the implications of all of that on the various exchange rates, you know, and of course on the monetary policy of the countries, right? Those are things that they are still debating on. So if you have a digital currency, right, it would definitely eliminate some of those bottlenecks, right? And of course, spur trade. Public spending and governance is another key issue in procurement systems, especially in Africa. That is the heartbeat of corruption, right? So that's where most of the corruption in Africa basically exists, right? And so why don't we leverage the technology in such spaces, bring down the cost of governance, right? You're able to basically prevent manipulation of the bids, right? The bid information, the bid responses, right? The contract awarding process, the contract monitoring process. All of that ideally should be imputed in the blockchain system, right? To mitigate against corruption. Peer-to-peer energy trading, right? I often say now that just like in the mobile telephony space, where we had mobile communications, right, trying to improving the telecommunication infrastructure in Africa, as opposed to the centralized communication infrastructure in Nigeria. In the energy space too, we have to go the way of microgrids, distributed energy generation. Even the ESCOM experiment is showing now that large monolithic power suppliers, right, have their own issues. So we have to go distributed. And then in that setup, there will be need for peer-to-peer energy trading, transfer of power across shorter distances or across microgrids, can also benefit from blockchain technology, digital claims to land ownership, especially, you know, in Nigeria. It's a very serious issue, right? The Omonile scourge in and then it's also in eastern Nigeria, right? And then, you know, the contention for land takes many years. It's a court process. You know, people lose lots of monies in the process. Many people have lost their lives due to other non-scientific extrajudicial war items, things like jars and all of that. I was looking for the right word. And then, of course, digital claims for educational credentials, right? We often, everywhere we have people that are banding fake certificates that don't necessarily belong to them. Blockchain can also help there. Tracing agricultural goods along the supply chain, right? This is a very key one for food security and food safety, right? I'm able to recall foods, to be able to trace the provenance of food, agricultural goods along various supply chains, and of course tied to what I talked about, trade facilitation, right? Trade facilitation and digital payment infrastructures are intertwined and can also foster trade in the African setup. In the education space, blockchain can help facilitate the secure, traceable, and verifiable exchange of educational data among institutions in the learning and employment ecosystem, right? Issues like digital credentialing can be for degrees, it can be for micro certificates, it can be for digital badges for a specific skill set, it could be for apprenticeships, right? Basically, we are all getting into the space of lifelong learning, right? Education is essentially borderless, right? And then the degree you had or you're graduating with now will probably not be the last certificate. You probably Ghana, you go for short learning programs, you will do some courses on Coursera, Udemy, and the rest. And so all of that can be imputed on the blockchain such that an individual can have a permanent digital transcript for life, showing your expertise or the things you've gained an education on, right? And it will help you going forward. And then, of course, for university curricula, right, can transform the management of university curricula. For some of us in engineering, for instance, we often have to do with accreditation, right? A lot of documents, right, are required to be stored and to be vetted by external parties, right? Blockchain can also help in that space. For educators, it can make your life easier. You can use smart contracts, right? The smart contract essentially is a pre-programmed line of code that specifies what should happen if certain conditions are met, right? So you could program a course into the blockchain, you could use it to mark, right? And then all of this can be done automatically and irrevocably. I have to say that this might not be possible in certain areas, or you could not use a smart contract in the education space in areas that are subjective, right? If maybe it's a grade, you have to explain something, and then the assessor has to apply his or her mind to decode the intent or the answers, and obviously you can't use the blockchain in that case. However, you could perhaps use a blockchain together with the generative AI in this case, right? So that's a prime example where generative AI can work or can be hybridized with blockchain technology, and in the subjective cases can read or can summarize the student's answers, glean the insight or the answers that the student is giving, and then award mark, and then that can now be put in the blockchain system, right? Or can also be used in the accreditation system, similar, like I said, for the digital credentialing process. And so this is an example of a system that we have developed in our center, certified, basically put into test, for want of a better word, or practicalizing some of the ideas that we have been banding about for certificates, right? Verifying the whole process, right? There is the web app, and then there's, of course, the document itself that is also embedded on the blockchain and can also have some form of it can be queried, right? It could be verified, and then they can either give us various verification status, like either is verified, either is tampered with, and basically throw some more light on the nature of the certificate that is being queried. Of course, you need various participants and various interfaces for this, and then we are currently trialing it with an institution that we don't want to detail now, right? Example with verified active is intact. The prior one was tampered with, right? And then in case you now revoke, it's possible maybe that the certificate can be revoked, right? And then it basically tells you in that event that this has been revoked, right? The database, I unpacked some of these ideas in a recent, well, earlier this year, in a recent, last year rather, in a recent podcast where I basically talked about how the technology can influence the African experience or basically make life better. And then I had mentioned, and I think this is the prime case, right? When we have democracies or when we have elections in Nigeria that are, or in Africa generally, that are very contentious, right? It's not good for anybody. Going through the courts, whoever emerges from that process is typically weakened, right? And then it polarizes the nation, right? And so we some time ago we did some work along this space, trialing the use of blockchain for democracy or elections, called the ballot coin, and then we are currently also implementing this in practice now, practically, right, as a test case. But of course, there are a lot of other, for want of a better word, scalable systems have also been developed, right, that can be implemented implemented as the case may be, to help this all-important area, right? So I think that's about it for me. Thank you very much for having me. Do I have questions, please? If I don't know if there's time for questions, but if there is, then I'll probably answer.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that expository sections on blockchain technology as a tool for social good. Thank you so much, sir. Now it's time for questions. I want to implore the participants, if you have any questions, kindly raise up your hand for identification. Questions? Questions? Okay, there's one question. Mr. Dada, Mr. Dada, your question, you have the floor now.
Good afternoon, Prof. This is Dada speaking. Thank you so much for the powerful presentation. I love it, and I'm interested in some of the issues you raised, especially the one about the blockchain. I just wanted to know, concerning the static verify issue or the topic you spoke about, what does it mean for institutions like your SACWA, your IE, in terms of verifying or upgrading people's qualification to South African standards? So in the other words, you don't need to go around and be asking them to verify or to evaluate your document or your credentials or your qualification. What does it mean for institutions like SACWA and IE?
Okay, no, thank you very much, Dada. Yeah. So I think it's more geared towards IIE, right? Because IIE essentially exists to verify the authenticity of the document, right? SACWA, on the other hand, basically benchmarks the quality of the equivalency, right? And the quality of whatever you studied, right? Is it equivalent to a South African education? And right, if it is, then at what level is it? Is the NQF level 7, 8, 9, and 10, as the case may be, right? So SACWA is, at the end of the day, it depends on the internal nation's arrangements, but the certifier that I mentioned is more geared towards verifying that an institution indeed awarded this certificate. So it's more geared towards the IIE case, right? To to certify that the certificate or the transcript is authentic, it is for this individual, all right, and then to give peace of mind in that process. And then in the event that that certificate is revoked or anything of that sort, that information is also recorded on the blockchain, right? So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, Prof. Thanks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I don't think I have any other questions.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Before I call on the chairman for the planning committee, Mr. Peter Adekunle, and also the president of our Greetings Association, I want to say thank you to all our keynote speakers, and thank you for still being with us till now, Professor Fawole, Professor Ikotun, and Professor Nwulu. Thank you so much, sir. We have heard a lot about technology today. Before I hand over to my bosses, I would just say that the challenge has been that we all have works to do. And these innovations or technologies are not new. We just need to adopt them and also model them to our own locality. So if we all look into the Rogers theory, the innovation diffusion theory. We could also see that early adopters are always have the lowest percentage, and maybe people like us in Nigeria were in the late majority to adopt an innovation. But however, as researchers and as individuals, using the instrumentality of social media, we could help push the early adopters. Once we see those who have adopted a technology that is unique, that is good, that can be adaptable to our own settings in Nigeria or in Africa as a whole, we could help use through social media to project those early innovations, that it could also be adopted, it could also be contextualized into our own plan and locality also. And also, I want to remind all of us that about two informations from Mr. President. One is that the ticket for the dinner award night is still selling. It's just 120 rands. And also, yeah, it's still selling at 120. Now you can pay online or you can also pay at Pick and Pay, but you need to register first on the link that has been shared on the group page. You get a reference number. If you want to pay at Pick and Pay, you will get a reference number, and then you take the reference number to Pick and Pay Mall, and then you would be able to pay. Then secondly, remember this week is Naija's week, and tomorrow, Tuesday, is our community engagement outreach. Like we were told by the welfare director at the last General Assembly meeting, that we'll be going to help some student So, and the time is 10 a.m. We are all to converge at the STH as APB campus. And this, like Prof. Ikotun rightly said, change begins with us. If we want to see changes, we have to also be available to give it out. So please, tomorrow, let's start with that. Impartation of knowledge, impartation of experience. It's always a great deal. You may not know it. From my own personal experience, it's all a summation of the experiences of people who have come before us and our mentors. And you could also do the same thing to the boys and girls that we want to see tomorrow. So the time is 10 a.m. And after that, we'll just wait for about 15 minutes before we depart to the Boys and Girls Club here in Johannesburg. I will now hand over to Mr. Peter, the chairman, to give the closing remarks, and then we'll call today's part of the activities of the Naija Day week to a close. It's Naija Day. Let's everything be Naija this week. Our clothing, our language, and everything Naija. Mr. Peter, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Davidov. I want to appreciate everyone for joining the first day of the Naija week. I believe the discussion we've had this morning has been insightful and eye-opener for each and every one of us. Going forward, I want the knowledge we have received from our speakers today to using it to shape our decisions, our actions going forward. And I want to believe we all took note of one or two things, and we will definitely make use of the things we've learned today, right from our first speaker, Professor Fawole, Professor Bolanle, Ikotun, and our last speaker. We also want to say a very big thank you to our speakers for their availability. We are so grateful, SARS and Ma. It's an opportunity for you to share from your wealth of knowledge to us, and we don't take it for granted. Thank you so much, Professor Fawole. Thank you so much, Professor Bolanle Ikotun. Thank you so much, our patron, Professor Nnamdi Nwulu. We are so grateful. And like the moderator for today has said, Naija will continue till Thursday, and tomorrow we are having our community engagement. As I said, we'll be converging at 10 a.m. On Wednesday, we'll be having our career/empowerment talk. And in the evening on Wednesday, there will be a novelty match at the APB football pitch against the Congolese team. On Thursday is the final day, and I expect everybody, we are all invited to the physical conference. It is happening at STH by 3 p.m. I implore us to come, as we've also prepared another round of guest speakers that will be lecturing us that day. And once again, thank you very much for coming, and we are grateful. I hope to see every one of us tomorrow, on Wednesday, and also on Thursday. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.